We just try to record this session first. Okay, so good afternoon. Welcome participants in and out of Thailand to this month's final event by PSU Open Mobility 2022. We are glad to have you all here on board, gathering up and sharing our knowledge as the intellectual community. In this session, for today's session, our invited speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Gabriel Fang, will cover the topic of the writing for publication, publishing qualitative research papers. And before we move on, as usual, allow me to briefly introduce today's moderator, Dr. Pasan Chai Hao. Dr. Chai Hao is a lecturer at the Department of Foreign Languages, Faculty of Liberal Arts, Prince of Songkhla University, Hat Yai Campus, Thailand. He received his doctoral degree in English language and applied linguistics from the University of Birmingham, United Kingdom. And his research interest lies in applied corpus linguistics, language pedagogies, and teacher education. And now, to cut the chase, I'm going to let Dr. Chai Hao to continue with the session today.
Hi and welcome everyone. I am Pasan Chai Hao. Okay, you can call me Sam actually. Okay, your moderator today. So thank you for joining us today as we talk about writing for publication. And actually, as Yusuf mentioned, actually today we have over 200 attendees registered with us. Probably, I think they will join us later, probably soon. Okay. We also got a certificate for you today to pick up at the end of the session. So stay tuned to learn more about this. Okay. So as a lecturer, we have to admit that doing research in our disciplines is quite challenging for many of us, actually, particularly when doing qualitative research, because it involves a variety of quite different approaches. However, we might find that getting our qualitative research published is sometimes even harder, actually. So today is fortunate that we have Dr. Fang. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Dr. Fang to share with us his views about writing research papers for publication. And he will be talking. Actually, the title of the talk is Writing for Publication, Publishing Qualitative Research Paper. So during the talk, if you have any question, feel free to drop your question on the open chat box, okay, and we will collect your question and read them to the speaker later at the end of the session. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the speaker. Dr. Fang obtained his PhD from the Center of Global Englishes, University of Southampton, UK, and he got his MA from the University of Leeds, UK. He is currently Associate Professor at College of Liberal Arts, Shantou University in China. And his research interests includes global Englishes, applied linguistics, sociolinguistics, language attitude, identity, intercultural communication, teacher education, and language teaching and learning. Dr. Fang has published articles in journals including Asia Pacific Journal of Education, Asian Englishes, ELT Journal, English Today, Journal of Multilingual and Multicultural Development, Language, Culture and Curriculum, Language Teaching, Research, Lingua, Rail Journal, System, among others. His latest books include a monograph titled Repositioning Accent Attitude in the Global Englishes Paradigm, a critical phenomenological case study in the Chinese context, roulette, and an edited volume co-edited with Dr. Handoyo Widodo, titled Critical Perspective on Global Englishes in Asia, Language Policy, Curriculum, Pedagogy, and Assessment. Okay, so I think everyone is now excited about what he's going to say with us today. So welcome, Dr. Fang.
Thank you very much, Yusuf, for your invitation, and James for your kind introduction. It's my great honor to share this presentation with you about writing for publication. So particularly, I'll be focusing on publishing qualitative research papers. All right. Okay. So I myself, it's more on this qualitative research methodology, but I'm still, doing a bit on quantitative one. But I just co-author with people, like for statistics, right? I don't do like statistics very in a professional way, because I realize that some people are doing very, very well on quantitative research on statistics. And I confess myself that I'm not really, really good at numbers and statistics. So I try to do like both mixed methods studies and again, qualitative studies. And I'm very interested in talking with people, communicating with people. And I think when we conduct qualitative research, it's about something on sensitivity. It's about on sensitivity. Okay, so I'm not sure if we've got some novice students or researchers that if you are interested in publication. So I'll spend like the first half talking about publication and talking about something on peer review, this process of having an academic paper published. We need to go through different stages. And I'll be spending the second half of today's lecture on qualitative research papers. And I'll share with you some examples of my papers and like where I received reviewers' responses and how we like respond to the reviewers, right? How we respond to the reviewers. So I'll share with you some examples on my publication. Okay, so the first half, if you see, I'll just talk about something in general. So there is a very, very famous saying called publish or perish. And I think to some extent it's very scary for especially PhD students and novice researchers. I don't want to perish, or I want to publish, of course. But I think now, we kind of adapt the saying, not simply publish or perish. We mentioned it's publish and I would say flourish, something like this. Or not only that we learn to survive, but we also learn to strive in our field. I think we need to develop this kind of more like optimistic, positive attitude. So again, this is very like crucial and cruel as well, because if we see this publication journey, right, even if you have an idea, even you start to research, starts to write, but if you don't go to the green lights, which is publish, right? So the process is that nobody, your paper cannot be read by people, all right? So I just co-author with a paper, like with Yusuf, and so this morning we received like a reject, right? So anyway, but we will need to revise. But I think this is a very common process, but something is not really good, like when sometimes because we have time difference, so sometimes when I get up in the morning I just receive a letter, right? It's not really good to start a day, but anyway, we need to understand for academics this is a process, but it's very important that how we reach to this publication stage. I also share with my students and with people that if you remember that at the University of Southampton, we've got this PhD training sessions, PhD training courses. And I attended a training session when I was still doing my PhD. And the trainer told us that, okay, how do you regard your PhD thesis, or what motivates you to start your PhD, right? You don't simply want to be called as doctor something, but you want to publish your thesis. And the trainer at that training session mentions that if you don't publish your PhD, right, whatever, if it's a book or whatever, it's some papers, right? So very few people will really read your PhD thesis, right? So you really need to enter this academic circle that you have the paper published. And it's not easy. That's why always when I talk about publication, and I always experience myself, it's very challenging to have a paper published and have a paper accepted, right? So, but anyway, this is peer review. And here the quote is that most scientists, right? Most scientists regarded the new streamlined peer review process as quite an improvement. And I think this is the job for the editors as well as reviewers. So editors will choose qualified reviewers, professional reviewers that they write, they know your field, they write the comments, even if it's a reject, you know, wow, why I have this paper rejected, instead of 2 or 3 sentences and then reject this paper. But anyway, right, I've got different experiences. Like sometimes I feel that I really need to learn from the reviewers. They have very I mean, not always positive comments, but very helpful professional comments to help you improve the paper. And I think for some novice researchers, they don't really pay attention to the reviewer comments. Okay, if they receive reject, okay, I reject. So then the second day, I just submit again to another journal without any revision. So normally you also receive a reject. It's very common. And it's also very possible that if you submit to another journal without any revision, and then the same reviewer can also review the paper, right? And you see what happened, right? The reviewer provided you with comments, and then you don't really revise and submit the same paper to another journal. And then if the same reviewer reads the paper, right, he or she will not be that happy, right? So here, is that how we respond to the reviewer comments? Even this paper was rejected by the editor, by the reviewer, but also very important that we don't treat the reviewers as the enemy, right, and the editor as the enemy. Okay, so sometimes I also edit, I'm also working as an associate editor of a journal and also a book review editor. So I think editors, they also spend time, reviewers, they also spend time voluntarily, right, to read the paper, to help you revise the paper. And editors, again, and for editors, they need to make decisions, not 100% based on the reviewer, but of course, reviewer comments, professional reviewers comments are very, very important. Okay, so you see that my field is more like on sociolinguistics, English language education. Again, if you're interested in my study, feel free, you just talk to me, email me. I'll be very happy to share my paper with you. But you see that I completed my PhD 2015 and I started to write a book. 2017, yeah, this was published in 2016, and in 2017 it was assigned a volume and the issue number. It's also based on part of my PhD. And later I worked with a colleague who is who is like a lecturer at the English Language Center at my university, and she later completed her PhD at the University of Hong Kong, and now she's working in Macau, right? But I think this one, again, I felt it was really like a rewarding experience. But if for many people, okay, it's not wrong, of course, right? Especially if we don't have this experience. People say, wow, you publish a paper here, you publish a paper there, it seems it's very easy. And then people just talk to me, people talk to some other authors, right? Can I co-author with you, right? I want to have a quick publication, can you help me? But many situations, many cases, people just see the results. People don't really see the process of it. All right. I think when I first published a paper in system, I think later I've got the slide. We went through 5 revisions, and it took 1.5 years for this paper to be published online, right? Even before an issue number. So more than 1.5 years, right? For a paper I think it's very common. And sometimes people just see the journal records, right? When it's submitted, when it's accepted. But sometimes it's a special issue paper. Sometimes it has been revised a lot, many times with the reviewer and with the editor, and it has gone through peer review. So here, sometimes when you see the journal, submitted, accepted, it's not always the case, right? A paper cannot just submit and accept within 20 days or a month. It's already worked with the editor and the reviewer, and then the editor says okay, or the guest special issue, right? Guest editor said it's okay, you can submit. Then they will be processed on the system. So if you see that only 10 or 20 days it has been accepted, it does not mean it's always the case. It's always a long journey of it. But again, if you see that I started to work, right, and during this, and started to publish more papers after 2020, because it seems that if we started to teach online, then more time. And I think it's also like a process that, we say it's not only like a game, but the rules, what it means for a quality paper. You don't just submit after you submit. If you submit and it's not be accepted, why do you still submit, right? So you spend time to revise before you submit. Make sure that the quality of this paper surfaces, and again, at least path through your standard, your level, and it's good that you also share your paper with a more experienced scholar. Okay, don't just feel that, oh, I complete a paper, 6,000, 7,000 paper, and then the second day I can submit. It's not always the case, right? So like for me, I think for many people, right, we have to read again after maybe 2 or 3 days, and then proofread, and then read it again after 2 or 3 days. Make sure formatting, language, structure, everything, methodology is ready to submit. So my suggestion here is that don't rush, right? That you just finish a paper, then you submit. So why do people conduct research or research, right? A research, a noun or a verb is research, is a noun. But of course, this is a verb, research, search again. The systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. Here as a verb, to investigate systematically, discover or verify information for use in a book, programmatic lecture. So if we link to publication, right, establish facts, reach new conclusions. So there is still a debate that's whether it is possible for every piece of research to have the new information or new or the significance. Sometimes it's very hard, right? So again, if you conduct a piece of research in another context, again, it's about this originality. You cannot expect that every paper is 100% original, but how can this paper contribute to the field? This is something more important and something the reviewer would read, right? But of course, sometimes I receive the comments by saying that what is the originality of this paper, and then the reject. So I also receive something like this, but it's always difficult, right? Not every reviewer would really understand the case of research, but investigate systematically. What does it mean by systematically? Is that how and the process, right? what methods do you use? How do you deal with? How do you collect your data? And how do you analyze your data? Yeah, in applied linguistics, again, it's very, very important. You get systematically. So what does research mean to you? Why do people publish? All right, so I found this one. Yeah, research in the middle, opportunity, idea, earnings, development, innovation, experience, curiosity, or growth. Of course, if we are familiar with a motivational theory, some are instrumental, of course, some are integrative, and some are really, we cannot say whether it's purely instrumental and integrative. That's why the theory of motivation also need updated, right? So I don't know, like for people, they say, I have to publish because I have to write a paper because I have to publish to finish, for my term, for my contract. And I think this is very, very like stressful if you publish a paper because you have to publish, right? And then you don't see the possibilities. You don't have this curiosity because you are forced to conduct research. You don't see this personal growth, etc., etc. And then you don't develop any idea because you are forced to conduct the research. So I think this is not really it's not really like auspicious circle, right? If you do this, and some people may think that, okay, I publish one paper, I earn how much money, and then I publish 5 papers, how much money will I earn, right? And then when you see reject, when you don't have this paper published, you say, oh, I lose that much of money. Again, this is not really right conducive, I would say, or auspicious or something. So it's more about personal interests. It's more about personal growth. Of course, when you publish, you have more opportunity, right? If I don't have that publication, if I haven't published any papers, nobody will invite me to conduct a workshop on writing for publication, right? So again, there's always like a process, and it's always like accumulation of this. But I think it's more important. This was a survey, right, conducted, and people will see that they publish for knowledge dissemination, for new research topics. Yeah, previously in many Chinese universities, right, that lecturers, professors, they were encouraged to publish papers in SSCI, the ISI journal, ISI index journals. Yeah, they have this kind of bonus. If you publish one paper, how much money do you have? But now it seems that many universities in China don't have this kind of policy, right? Because they feel that if you have this kind of policy, people are doing this purely instrumental. They don't write, they don't publish for their self-interest, not for their knowledge dissemination, but of course they just publish for job security. Because again, in China, if you don't publish, you don't have enough publication, you don't apply for those fundings projects. Within 7 years after, you cannot be promoted, right? Some policies, right, or 3 years based on the contract, you cannot be promoted. And so the next term, okay, this contract, you may lose your job, or you may, this position. So here, job security as well. But I think it's more instrumental, but more people, right, from this survey, for knowledge dissemination, or they develop this new research topics. It's contribution to the humankind and the knowledge. For the journal search, I recommend this one, Web of Science. But this website, you can see the journal index. Of course, I know in Thailand and some of the Southeast Asian countries, Scopus, right? It's scopus.com. But Web of Science, we search the ISI index journals. Yeah, in China, we call this SSCI. It's called Social Science Citation Index. So I search an example like Journal of Language, Identity and Education. So we see that this is Web of Science, SSCI. So yeah, in China, we call it Social Sciences Citation Index. Yeah, so I know some like if you are from China, Chinese students, if you know the Chinese system, if you publish if you write a paper in Chinese, it's called CSSCI, Chinese Social Sciences Citation Index. So there is another system in China, it's called CSSCI. Again, very, very competitive, very, very difficult. Another index is called ANHCI, it's Arts and Humanities Citation Index. Some linguistic journals, education journals, and literature journals index on this ANHCI. Yeah. So if you know this, if you don't know a name of a journal, for example, if you just search, yeah, I want to look for some journals, English language education, something is very general. And then you search many, you can, yeah, just, this is just screenshots, right? So many journals. So you can just filter the search, right? Do the filter the search, yeah, or you do the ESCI, science, exactly. Okay, and if you know the name of a journal, if you want to check the index, right? If you know the name of a journal, for example, language, culture, curriculum, you search it, you see the index, right? So this website, web page, is very, very handy. If you're interested searching the journals. Something important that I also tell the postgraduate students, but yeah, for undergrads, it's too early for them to know. But be aware of predatory journals. Again, it's very important to know. Yeah, especially if we established a academic community of practice. Some people just pay a large amount of money to publish a paper on predatory journals. So there is a danger, because sometimes people don't know what predatory journals are. This fraudulent, deceptive, or pseudo journals, right? As long as you have some publications on emails, you receive many emails telling you, dear sometimes they don't write my name correct. So I'm the editor of and I'm very interested in how can you contribute a paper to my journal? And sometimes I receive a journal from like medical fields, or even from archaeology. They are even not part of it. So it's generated through the database or computer or the data or computer, something like this. Yeah, they don't write your name well correctly. Sometimes they don't write your institution correctly. Yeah, even sometimes people say, dear Miss Fang, something like this, whatever it is. So you realize it's always, yeah, the publication that claim to be legitimate scholarly journals. If you search, they also claim they have the impact factors, like even 5 or 6. We know that the top journal of applied linguistics is about 5 or 6. Yeah, you search modern language journal, you search applied linguistics. Yeah, recently it's higher, yeah, 6 or 7. But they just self-claim they have high impact factors, etc., and they include everything, whatever fields. Yeah, if a journal, we know that many international journals focuses on specific fields. If you see that if you say applied linguistics is more inclusive, but sometimes you see journal of pragmatics, it's only pragmatics, right? If you see like journal of second language writing, yeah, it's only about second language writing. If you see a pronunciation teaching paper, you cannot submit to journal of second language writing. But those predatory journals will self-claim that I cover everything. Yeah, syntax, semantics, pragmatics, or educational literature, whatever it is. So here is that claims to be a peer-reviewed open access publication, advertises a journal impact factor or other citation metric. Yeah, it's always incorrect if you go and search the journal. And now if you see the layout, you know, publishes all articles for which authors pay an APC article processing charge. Yeah, even if the article is is low quality. Yeah, I think it's good. This is Chinese. If you can translate to Thai, I think it's also it will benefit the Thai audiences as well. But again, it's not vice versa, right? It does not mean that if you need to pay an APC, it's predatory. I think it's very, very important, because we also talk about open science, right? Some scholars are promoting this open science. If they have funding, if they have institutional support, they publish through open access journals. But it does not mean that all open access journals are predatory. Many open access journals are good. Yeah, good top journals as well, right? Yeah. So again, we also need to be aware of this predatory journals. So key in research, one is about passion. Second is that if you don't start to write, you cannot publish a paper only because you have passion. And always that some people are perfectionists. They say, wow, I want to write in a quality paper just in a short time, and I just feel very, very unsatisfactory of my writing, right? Nobody writes well in the first drafts, yeah, or maybe some, but a lot of people, yeah, cannot write well in the first draft, especially, yeah, another topic is about native speakers of English, non-native speakers of English, right? Whether we need to go through this language issues as well. So don't just feel that it's always possible to write a perfect draft just at the first try, and the first go. It's always difficult. So a good paper needs to go through lots of revision processes, self-revision, right? Self-correction, peer revision, proofreading, professional revision, etc. Then peer review process before you have this paper published. Solicit and manage submissions from the editor, manage peer review, the reviewers. But here we also need to know desk rejection. If the editor feels that the quality of this paper is good enough, or this paper falls in the scope of this journal, the editor will send out your paper for peer review, and normally it's 2 reviewers. Of course, some journals operate the single blind peer review, which means the peer reviewer, the reviewers know the author, right? Some journals regulate this double blind peer review. Yeah, the reviewers don't know the authors, and the authors don't know the reviewers. But some journals also operate this double peer review. But if the paper is accepted, the reviewer's identity will be reviewed, right? So again, I think it's to make sure that the reviewers are responsible. The reviewers are very careful to read your paper, right? If the reviewer identity will be reviewed, right? So if the editor feels that your paper is not qualified or does not fall into the scope of this journal, the editor may just reject the paper without sending for peer review. And this is called desk rejection, right? So my experience of desk rejection was that I submitted the paper in the morning. Yeah, I won't tell you which journal I submitted this paper to. I submitted this paper in the morning, and after lunch, I took a nap. When I got up, turned on my computer, I received a rejection, right? It's about 4 or 5 hours that for this test rejection. And yesterday on a social media, I had a WeChat group on the social media. Some people even share another experience of desk rejection. Yeah, submitted a paper, after 6 minutes, receive a rejection letter. Well, that's so I don't know, I was shocked, right? Some people also share that experience. 6 minutes, how come? Yeah. So I don't know, maybe it's the scope of this paper does not fit the journal, of course. So regardless of the quality, maybe this is a quality paper, well-written one. But again, we have to know the scope of this journal. For example, if we submit a pronunciation teaching paper to Journal of Second Language Writing, yeah, of course, it's rejected automatically, yeah. So responding to reviewers, that's from the author's perspective. Yeah, so I'll be sharing with you my examples, but this is only the case, right? It does not mean this, people have to follow this one, but example. And then later, right, edit and prepare it. But here, this peer review, this responding can go through several months, even a year, even longer than a year. So R1, R2, R3, R4, R5, even more than that. So many rounds of revision. So if the paper is accepted, you edit, and then you go to the production copy editor before your paper is published, and then the authors will disseminate. But I think it's a rewarding experience, right? Even you, as long as you are given opportunities to revise, even it's a major revision. Now we say, well, when we receive a major revision, we feel very happy, right? It's very difficult that the first rounds of paper you receive like minor revision. Yeah, so I think the most cases, either you receive major revision or you receive reject, right? So here, just like, yeah, I think we already talked about this submission process, and patience again is very important. So here, a general piece of information or general piece of advice is that don't ask the editor regarding the process of the manuscript. If the paper stays there under review, maybe for 6-7 months, authors may start to ask politely, or even the paper stays on the manuscript center 2 or 3 months without review. Okay, in that sense, as authors, they can ask very politely, but don't just ask maybe after a month of peer review to the editor, right? So in that sense, I think, yeah, this is also, I also heard of some other people saying that people are very busy, and you don't just simply check this paper in a short amount of time. Yeah. So peer review, this kind of process, I would say it may not be the best, but is the most appropriate, at least in the process of publication. Yeah, it has some shortages, of course. Yeah, we never know if the peer reviewer knows well your field, or if how long the peer reviewer spends reading your paper or commenting your paper. But this it has been established, right, many years ago here from Elsevier website. It's more than 350 years, but it's very important. It plays a vital role in publication to validate academic work, helps to improve the quality of published research, increases networking possibilities within research communities, right? So again, people read your paper, and you also serve as a reviewer, right, yourself. I think, like, for me, if I read a quality paper, I provide comments, and the author revise, and finally, if I see, wow, the paper you review gets published, especially when the paper cites your work, wow, you feel very happy, right? It's not only rewarding the process of peer review, but also you recognize other people's work, and other people recognize your work as well, right? So this is a mutual process, but of course, if the paper's quality really depends on the quality of the paper, yeah. And this is a process. I can share with you the PowerPoints, and you see the process very complicated, and often depends on different journals, right? Why do reviewers review? Again, I don't know if you search, if you have experiences serving as a reviewer. Yeah. For me, when I receive invitation, I'll decide whether I would accept this invitation as a reviewer from the content of this paper itself, from the context of this paper as well. Yeah. And also depends how many papers do I have. Sometimes if I am packed with 4 or 5 papers, normally I won't accept any new invitations. But I still remember that I first received a review invitation by System just right after my PhD. I was very excited. Wow, the System journal invites me to review a paper. I was very, very happy, right? And the context, I know the context, so I just accepted. It's one of the earliest my reviewing experience in top journals in applied linguistics. So I think for reviewers also we need to cherish those kind of opportunities, value. Of course, yeah, if you obtain a PhD, if your work is recognized by the editor, of course, right? So you see this experience, value from mentoring novice researchers, serve the academic world. Of course, there was a debate that whether reviewers should get paid, right? And that's another complicated issue. Yeah, but now it's mostly you serve as a reviewer is still voluntary. You don't get paid, right, when you review a paper. Have interest in the area, but of course it's very important that you have the awareness of new research and developments before there are other peers. Yeah, so when you receive a paper, you know, wow, this is what people are doing, and then you also learn from your peers. When you provide feedback or comments to the paper, right? You know the field. Career development, people also put this on the CV, right? That you serve as a reviewer to this journal, to that journal. Also association with journals and editors, right? Yeah, you review with this journal, and later when you submit to this journal, the editor knows, well, somebody, right, once served as a reviewer. Keep updated with latest developments. Yeah. So here, of course, we've got some possible outcomes. The most often is the major revision, but of course I should say the most often is the reject with reviewers' comments, right? But when you receive major revisions, it's also people are recognizing your work. Yeah. So I haven't received anything like accept without revisions. Yeah, it's impossible, like for me at least. I haven't come across. Yeah. So the other 3 or the other 4 major minor, I experience all those. Yeah, that's rejection with reviewers' comments, major minor revision. But take the if you are given this major or minor revisions, take it seriously and revise again. Yeah, I think I can talk about that, whether you always need to follow the reviewer's comments, right? What happens if you don't agree with the reviewer's comments? Okay, so one suggestion is that don't always refute. If you feel you need to refute politely. Yeah. If you don't agree, if you receive 5 comments and you don't agree with 4, what happened? Then that's a very complicated issue. If you refute 4 out of 5, and if the paper was sent to the same reviewers, possibly the reviewer will not be happy and your paper can be rejected. I would say if you receive a comment, for example, 5 pieces of comments, and you don't agree with 4 out of 5, find the one that you mostly don't agree with, write a very polite refutation, and try to revise strategically the other 3 comments, right? From the most that you can revise, you still take the reviewer comment seriously. Yeah, you can refute the one that you don't agree with most. I think in this way, it's more understandable that, or you can write another general comments at the end, response at the end to the reviewer. Yeah, but still, I think it depends on case to case, right? Yeah, if the reviewer really don't understand anything of your paper, you can talk to the editor in that sense. Yeah, and the editor, experienced editor, will make professional decision. Yeah. So how you prepare the manuscript to make sure the quality of your paper is good enough? That's for me is that I reread. Yeah, sometimes you prepare a manuscript on your laptop, on the computer. Like for me, I print it out and I read it again. I match in-text citation to the reference list. I go one by one. I just check one by one. If you have all these in-text citations on this reference list, yeah, or whether if you have something on the reference list without in the in-text citation, yeah, even though I check one by one at the end, if the paper is accepted and then go through production, always you have 1 or 2, yeah, missing references as well. But I think, which means that my comment is that we have to treat the paper very seriously before submission. Yeah, language, reference, and of course structure and methodology, those are very important. But you also need to present in a professional manner, in a professional way, right? Use software manager. This is my comments, but I think it's really depends. I put it's not always necessary. Yeah. I used Mendeley and EndNote before, but now I just feel that I feel more comfortable just type myself the reference. It's time consuming, but I don't know. I don't just trust a lot on this software. Yeah, I think to some yeah, too self-centered myself. It's not good. Yeah, to some extent, but. And again, like for people, we don't sometimes we don't over rely on those software. It's helpful for you, for people to sort out the reference, but I think it's always very important to check again by yourself. Yeah, don't just say, okay, I just copy and paste from the software, right? And it's there. Yeah, that's my comment. We can use it, but still read it by yourself. Read the journal submission guidelines, aims, and scope. Again, it's very important. And word limit, whether the words are with reference or without reference. Again, yeah. Take an eye on the call for papers for special issues. But again, if you work with your professor, with a more experienced scholar, yeah, this is a good opportunity. Yeah, that you submit an abstract first. You receive comments from the journal, from the guest editor, and if it's possible, just develop your paper to your abstract to a full paper. Even at the end, your paper cannot be accepted by this special issue. You have a paper on your hand to submit, to revise and submit elsewhere. So when I see some call for papers, I just push myself to write an abstract. If it falls in my research, of course, I just work with people or push myself to develop an abstract. And then later, whatever, if the guest editor is happy with your abstract or whatever is the guest editor is not happy with it, you can still work with people, you can still collect data, right? Yeah. So I think this is a way that you develop, frame your paper. Like for me, I also sometimes I write to book review editor to write a book review, although it's not that often now. Sometimes if you are commissioned to write a book review, yeah, it's good because when novice researchers, if we start to write a book review, you push yourself to read a book. Yeah, this is another story. Yeah, but I sometimes do this to push myself to read a book. And sometimes you read a free book and you have a free copy from the publisher. Yeah. So that's another one. Write to the editor is not really the case, but especially if you are not sure about whether this paper fits the journal, you can write to the editor, but sometimes the editor will not respond to you, right? For even 3 or 4 weeks. So that is another issue. Yeah, the editors are very, very busy, and you don't just simply expect to receive all the responses, even within a week. Sometimes even they don't respond to you. Of course, yeah, it's very common. Emerging research topics in applied linguistics. Again, I would suggest if we're interested in multimodal discourse or translanguaging. It's very big topic. Yeah, translanguaging in education, spontaneous translanguaging, pedagogical translanguaging, right, in classroom discourse, multimodal discourse, EAP or ESP, but of course, teacher development, hybrid online on-site teaching, if you are more like a practitioner, right? If you're interested in classroom practice, we can do hybrid online on-site teaching. Yeah, if some people are more like theoretical oriented, some people are more interested in theory, they can do something on maybe multimodal discourse, maybe they do ESP, EAP, but hybrid online on-site teaching, if they do a reflection, of course, yeah, a journal called Reflective Practice, yeah, some journals more focus on ELT, right, ELT journal, for example. Improvement on research methods. Yeah, that will say many papers apply linguistics. They have this very traditional, yeah, questionnaire, interview, focus group, and of course they are very important. But how do you develop? Yeah, even based on the methods, and we develop this method, right? A new journal called Research Methods in Applied Linguistics, right, as well. And there are some journals, for example, Qualitative Methods, right? A journal on quantitative method in education or qualitative method, something, yeah, if you are more interested in methodology. Teacher-student emotion in second language acquisition now is a very popular topic. Previously was about foreign language classroom anxiety, FLCA, foreign language enjoyment, right, FLE. And more recently, people are researching like boredom. Yeah, if students feel bored, teachers feel bored. And also people research burnout, especially from teachers' perspective, teachers' emotion, teacher burnout, right? Yeah, also research resilience or grit, right? It's more this psychological level. And of course, willingness to communicate, yeah, motivation, yeah, that's from earlier research. English as a lingua franca and global English is, of course, in teaching people's attitudes, people's awareness, or people's acceptance level of ELF, English as a lingua franca, and global English is in teaching. Language policy and planning, yeah. Language policy and planning. So people can do this micro level. Yeah. So it's the national government language policy planning. We can do this more like from the meso level. Yeah. Whether from the university level, classroom level, from the micro level is individual practice. And some people are doing like family language policy, right? Yeah, planning. So discourse through by like family language, family members, yeah, in different settings, different contexts. And people can also do document analysis, of course. Yeah, language policy planning. language teacher learner identity. Yeah, so we see that in applied linguistics, we have to develop this interdisciplinary research. It's no longer simply based on language teaching, language learning, or ELT. Yeah, so applied linguistics. Some scholars, some people even attack the field. People say, what really is applied linguistics, right? It's about language teaching. It's not always the case. That's why if we work in the field of applied linguistics, develop, yeah, and try to do more multidisciplinary works and have this kind of various methods, not focus on simply one method. Even later today, I talk about qualitative research. We don't focus on one method, right? So we don't simply have this clear cut of quantitative or qualitative. Yeah, it's not the case. Yeah, even within quant school, we can play lots of games, statistics. Even within this qualitative, we have different types of method. Well, target journals, impact factors, acceptance rate. But again, sometimes it's a bit tricky. Yeah, I searched this one earlier this year, but I think this is, I'm not sure whether this is the latest impact factor. It's a bit tricky because it does not always mean that a journal have this lower acceptance rate if it has higher impact factors. Yeah, theoretically, yes, but it's not always the case, right? So some people say, I want to try a journal with lower impact factors, but just beware of it, that some journals, I mean, still indexed one, even some journals have lower impact factors, it can still have high rejection rate. Yeah, so it really not depends. So there is no positive correlation, I would say, in terms of impact factors and acceptance rate. So that is the case. Yeah, but still, we really need to know the target journal is very important, and know the general length of review process. So I think it's good that you serve as a reviewer. You are given this time to review this paper, and when you serve as a reviewer for 20 journals, normally you know the average length of the review process of these 20 journals, because you are given, right, when do you need to submit the report, then you know, like maybe 1 month, maybe 2 months, maybe even longer. So I think this in the case that I sometimes accept this review invitation, because from another perspective, you also know the length of review process. Working with people, consult experienced colleagues for suggestion before your first paper. I would say yes, very, very important. So remember when I first published a paper in 2008, that was based on my master dissertation. Yeah, in the UK, we call master dissertation, PhD thesis. In the US, it may call master thesis, PhD dissertation. But I was very thankful. I just submitted without consulting anybody. But I was very, very thankful to the editor, yeah, of the journal. Yeah. Then the editor provided me with lots of comments, right? He loves the topic. Yeah, but that paper was it's too long, and the editor just responded saying that I like the topic, and can you just revise this paper from this, from that, and cuts the length, cuts the words. Yeah, I was very, very thankful that I didn't really consult a more experienced colleagues, but this is a suggestion. It's very, very important. Yeah, yeah. Don't regard editors or peer reviews as your enemies. So again, for novice researchers, they would say, wow, I was rejected. I really want to know who reviewed this paper, and I will kind of, I don't know, like boycott this review or something, or boycott this journal, for example. I think it's very common because we're all human beings, right? Yeah, it's very common. But I think we really need to see if the peer reviewers that read for free, they help you revise this paper. Of course, some peer reviewers have the bias and they just attack, right, this paper, or you just attack somebody without commenting based on the quality. Of course, yeah, we never know, but it's again very important. But like for me, when I started, yeah, to receive some reject letter, I was not really happy. But now I think it's a learning process. Yeah, I see this from a more objective perspective. Yeah, there is always the journal that after revision you can always have this paper published. Yeah, yeah. Always try to, I put satisfy, right? Again, as I mentioned, yeah, don't just refute every comment, because for experienced reviewers, you see things from one perspective, people see things from another perspective, right? So in a Chinese saying, I don't know whether there is equivalence in Thai, yeah, is that 3 people, yeah, if you walk together, there is always a teacher, there is always a professional. Yeah, you don't just regard others as somebody who is less experienced or something. Yeah, 3 peers, we always have some shining aspects or some shining points. So here, if you feel you want to rebut, if you want to write this rebut or refute, we do this in a strategic manner. Yeah. Thank the reviewer, explain why you don't agree, and where you revise and why you not revise something, why you don't want to revise, exactly. And here, respect it, yeah. Spend time writing detailed response by answering each question. I would say each question, even if you receive a comment by saying that, wow, this is a good piece of research, you just respond by saying thank you. Yeah, of course. My suggestion is that answer every question or every comment by the reviewer, and of course be patient. Yeah, so that paper, you see the publication, you see the article history. Yeah, it's literally 1.5 years for this process, 5 rounds of revisions. But I was, yeah, we were lucky, yeah, that the editor is also very supportive and provided us with many good comments. All right, so that I finished this general introduction of it. So writing papers through qualitative research methods. Again, I put qualitative. When we say qualitative research methods, a paper can still be mixed method. So there is, people say, oh, what does it mean by mixed method? Mixed method is mixed with quantitative and qualitative. It's not always the case, right? If you do qualitative method, it can be mixed method. If you do from interview, from focus group, from other qualitative research method, it can be a mixed method design. Depends on how you define it. Yeah. Like I'm passionate. I'm very interested in qualitative research methods because I want to collect data, work with people. Yeah, like it's me. Yeah, I'm not that sensitive to numbers. Of course, numbers tell people, but it's only from one aspect. Yeah, that's why I will also say both quant and qual. Yeah, we don't simply claim the findings from numbers, and of course, we don't simply claim the findings from working with a group of people. Yeah, that's why we say, how can you generalize your qualitative research? Of course, we don't claim to generalize qualitative. So we have a trend, we have generalization from numbers, from statistics, but we also focus on different cases, different stories, different life experiences, different narratives. I think it's also very interesting and very important. We are unique, right? Individuals. So here to explore and understand the complexity of the world from behavioral and social aspects. Yeah, numbers, words are very important. I don't say we don't do numbers or we don't do quantitative. Numbers are important. statistics is very important, but they only tell us from these numbers. So we also need to dig into other deeper aspects to understand different contexts, different cases. Qualitative research is not aimed to generalize from a large data sets. Yeah, it aims to describe or interpret various cases in a comprehensive and inclusive perspective. Right. So some students would also ask, some people, how come you only have 2 cases and you write a PhD? It's possible. It's possible, right? Especially if you conduct ethnographic with people, even you have 1-2 cases participants, you can generate very abundant, helpful data. So some people may have this kind of misconception of it. And yeah, there is always a debate for people who are more interested in numbers, quantitative physics. How come you just write a paper, right, by using 2-3 participants? But from this qualitative research, we don't generalize, but we deal with this. We look at things from a comprehensive, inclusive perspective, right? Qualitative research data is often with human involved, yeah, not always, of course, but they need to be in-depth, interactive, interpretive. Again, people will say, how you interpret your data is lots of subjectivity, right? You just pick up the data you want in the paper, is of course. So that's why we also have lots of techniques, coding strategies, and how you report the data, right? This is another case. But qualitative research, we recognize subjectivity in data collection and in data interpretation, but how subjectivity is controlled, right? Maybe through reflexivity, right? Etc. The trustworthiness. Yeah, so that goes to another story. Yeah. So qualitative research methods to generate or revise pre-existing theories. I would say it's more like inductive rather than deductive. Ethnographic techniques for in-depth data, observation, interview, focus group, etc., field notes, and how you interpret, right? Ethnography, case studies, document analysis, etc., and sampling. Again, yeah. So it's not a methodology course, but if you are interested in, many books on qualitative research, purposive, snowball, even convenient sampling, etc., right? Data analysis, in applied linguistics, we do like content analysis, thematic analysis. But for people who are more interested in discourse, conversational analysis, discourse analysis, people can do, discourse, critical discourse analysis. Some questions, again, some have a more fixed answer, but some really people can think more about this by reading, by conducting the research yourself. How many participants do I need for a qualitative study? Yeah, so some people ask me, even my undergraduate student ask me, how many people if I want to conduct an interview? They write a paper in 4 months, and she told me it's 30 enough. I think it's too many, right? Yeah, and depends on how you interview people. So sometimes I read a piece of study, I interview people, 30 participants, and each interview only lasted for 10 minutes. I said it's not an interview, right? How can you just interview people in 10 minutes? So here the case is that it's not about 1 participant or 30 participants, right? Compared to quantitative, right? Even 1-2 participants, you can have a in-depth data. But again, I understand that some people may have misconception that you cannot write a paper by simply having 1 or 2 participants. But normally, if you want to conduct interview, I would say 8 to 10, for a 6,000 7,000 paper, at least you have this pictures, more comprehensive picture. If you have 1, 2 people, 2, 3 people, you have to collect 1 round, 2 rounds, many rounds of data before you can have this kind of enough, I would say, over this the par, right, with this enough data for you to interpret. The second one is that my mathematics is poor. Does it mean that qualitative research suits me better? Okay, again, very interesting. I would say possibly for novice teachers, but it does not mean that you don't do coding. You don't do any, mathematics techniques when you do this. Sometimes you have to count as well when you have this interview data. Yeah, so for qualitative research, you have interview data. You can also analyze from a quantitative manner. So I think there's, again, no positive correlation, right, of the first and the second. And you may end up with loads of data. So it's different perspective, different strategy. When you write a paper, right, how long does my methodology section need when reporting qualitative research? Again, I don't have an answer. Yeah, if we simply submit a paper to a journal relevant to methodology, of course, you need to have longer one. But if you just write a paper, a section, right, methodology, but something we need to include is about setting and participants. Yeah, it's about how you collect data. What methods do you use to collect data? And how we analyze the data is the methodology, analytical framework, how you analyze data. Some also include a section on trustworthiness. Is that how we maintain this rapport with the participants, how we establish this social connection, relationship with our participants to make sure that you collect this authentic data. It's not you collect data by forcing participants to say something, right? Anyway, so something, again, this is the technique that researchers we need to follow, how we collect data. How can I recruit, right? Again, I just mentioned purposive sampling, snowball sampling, etc. Yeah, that depends on the research, depends on what purposes you want. Software for qualitative data analysis, I think one is MaxQDA, another one is NVivo. So they're very similar, but again, those software is different from SPSS. That SPSS can
and Fang, maybe one more is open coding, which is good for Thai data actually.
Yeah, open coding as well. Right?
Yeah, because some software, I mean, it doesn't accept the Thai data, I mean Thai language data from interview, for example, like the one that I'm working with Baker at the moment, the project, because you asked me to use the software and we are not able to use like an NVivo to analyze the qualitative data because it doesn't not able to export the Thai language actually. So we use the open coding, so it's maybe good for those Thai scholars here during this workshop if they prefer to analyze the qualitative data, which is collecting the data in Thai language, so they can use open coding.
Yeah, thank you for the comments. Yeah, maybe NVivo in the future if you can recognize, but at the moment, NVivo does not recognize Thai language, so probably other open coding. Yeah. Why qualitative research? Yeah, answer to a question systematically uses a predefined set of procedures to answer the question, collects evidence, produces findings that were not determined in advance, right? Again, a more challenging method is grounded theory, right? You just interpret everything from a blank sheet, you just collect data, develop a theory to do the grounded theory. Produces findings that are applicable beyond the immediate boundaries of the study. Yeah. So some examples of what people do. Yeah. Case study, records, keeping, process of observation, ethnographic research, But again, yeah, we need more readings. Those are can be a book on qualitative research method, but also can be a book on focus group, a book on interview, a book on class observation, a book on case study. So a general broad aspect on qualitative, but each research method can be many, many books that people can read if you are more interested in one or two certain research methods. So characteristics of qualitative research methods, yeah, collect data at a glance in the real time where participants are experiencing problems. For example, researchers collect data in different forms, such as interviews, observations, documents, works towards solving complex issues by breaking down into meaningful inferences. Yeah, this is how you sort out the data that are easy to read and understand for everyone. This is more like the coding process. Yeah, allows people to build trust on the researcher, so the information obtained is raw and unadulterated. So this is something that how you start to establish rapport with your participants, right? Especially when you haven't met before. So at the first 5 minutes, maybe you don't just say, sit down, okay, what do you mean? What do you feel about that? So here people may feel like threatened to answer the question, especially when you first met. So the strategy is that you find a place, you rest a bit, sit down, have a cup of tea or coffee, start to chat, right? To establish the rapport, to gain the trust, build trust by the participants. Then the participants will say something natural and raw material, more authentic material data. Again, this is a very rough idea about the difference between qualitative research methods, quantitative research method. It's not always whether it's open ends or closed ends, but quantitative research methods can be open-ended question as well in a questionnaire, but depends on how you analyze it. Yeah, descriptive data, numeral data, yeah, that can be. We can also generate numeral data on qualitative research, yeah, but it's very rough, it's very general, but it's a first glance that people know the difference. Yeah. Comparison of quantitative research approaches as well. So this one is another one. Yeah, the general framework. We see conform hypothesis is why some people would also ask whether you have an assumption, whether people have a hypothesis when we conduct qualitative research. It's very difficult. You can have an assumption, but it does not help you to conduct qualitative research, right? Yeah, it's very difficult to just say no assumption at all. If you don't do grounded theory, right? Yeah, you don't have an assumption, but even you have an assumption, you need to verify from the data, right? But quantitative research, you may want to test the hypothesis. You already have an assumption and you just test the hypothesis based data, etc. Right? Question formats, data formats, and flexibility in study design. Yeah, so qualitative is quite flexible sometimes. If we have this semi-structured interview, some more experienced researchers even conduct unstructured interview, but I don't just suggest early career researchers to have this unstructured, but semi-structured is flexible. We have the structure, we can ask follow-up questions based on the comments and observation, etc. Right? Yeah, you can take notes, yeah, whatever, you do this. So an example, like how we design these interview questions as well. Know those leading questions. Yeah, I think we already heard of this. But not only what, we are not interested simply on what this is or what that is, but we are more interested in why this will help this interpretation, why people think so, why people have this kind of concept perception, and allow for in-depth further probing and questioning various issues related, again, sociology, psychology, anthropology, etc. An important means of triangulation for quantitative or other sources of qualitative data. So a focus group can be a triangulation of your interview data, right? Observation can be a triangulation of interview data. That's why we collect qualitative data. We can do this. We can do a triangulation from observation, from from interview, from observation. Yeah, this is also a triangulation. You have observation, interview, and diary, reflective writing as well. Yeah. Not simply describe. Of course, we just see the table. Yeah, is descriptive. Where is it? I think something is to describe variation, to describe, right? And here it also says what? Okay, describing Yeah, but for me, descriptive data. Yeah, descriptive data. But for me, yeah, I would say that a good qualitative study or qualitative analysis should go beyond simply describe data. It's more important that how we interpret. Yeah, again, this also a challenge, that how you interpret is, so you're always based on your subjectivity, but how we interpret data, we can't just go beyond the data, right, to interpret whatever based on your own, but we interpret data, yeah, based on the data, not simply say, oh, did they say what they said, that you need to interpret. Again, this is very important. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm going to show you two cases. There are two papers that I published. One is on language teaching research. The title is called A More Inclusive Mind Towards the World, English Language Teaching and Study Abroad in China, from Intercultural Citizenship and English as a Lingua Franca Perspectives. The methods we use is through interview, focus group. And this one is on developing students' awareness of global Englishes. Yeah, we publish on ELT Journal, interview and reflective journal. Yeah. So as I just mentioned, that we need to have a research setting section. All right. So here we introduce where we collected data. All right. So here we just need to introduce, right, this where we collected the data. Participants, yeah. So participants we mentioned. Here is the variable. How do we maintain, right? It's not the same as how we report quantitative questionnaire, but for participants, for qualitative, how do we maintain this group of participants? Yeah, how do we select the sample, right? They have the standard, the criteria, right, of selection as well. So they all they have the English level. So this is the way we have this, we control this variable, yeah, in that sense. Okay. So again, data collection, okay, we use snowball sampling. And again, in this paper, right, we recruited student participants who had studied abroad for at least 4 months. Again, they have this similarity. Yeah. This is how we control the participants, this the variable. Yeah. The means of data collection. Okay, and following this, 6 participants attended a focus group. Finally, an email interview was conducted with 8 participants, and the language we used here. So those should be detailedly introduced, right? Introducing in detail for the reviewer, the editor, for people. Yeah, this is another case. Okay, face-to-face semi-structured interview. In this paper specifically, we also mentioned that in order to minimize researcher influence and for ethical purposes, the students were told that their participation in this study would not affect their final results in the course. Right, this is how we do the trustworthiness. One of the strategy, right, of these ethical issues being reflexive as researchers. Okay, the number of interviews, the number of reflective journals, and I put this as appendix as well. I put this as appendix as well to help reviewers. Excuse me. Yeah. Data analysis. Here, content analysis, and the detailed process, the detailed procedures, coding procedure, initial coding, a second level of coding, and a final interpretive level of coding. Now, this is very important. So I have some experience of like reviewing paper as well. That's some authors, when they write qualitative papers, they write one or two sentences on coding. That's not enough, right? So it's very important. Yeah, we introduce this data analysis. Okay. An example, like a general structure for methodology. Trustworthiness can be omitted, but I think it's also very important related to ethics limitation of data collection. This is literally the process, and data analysis is literally analytical framework. Yeah, but you don't need to follow what I said, exactly what I said, right? This is one of the examples, the general one. Trustworthiness and limitations. This is another paper published. So we also mentioned that it is hoped that by providing rich descriptions of the participants' experiences, findings may be transferable to other settings. So here for qualitative research, we don't claim to generalize the data. We recognize, okay, subjectivity, there will inevitably be a degree of subjectivity, but this is balanced, right? We recognize this, but how we deal with subjectivity by being transparent and reflexive. So we just send out the transcript to our participants. Yeah, we translate to English. We just hire a professor to translate. We have this peer check processes. So here is being transparent. We can share the data back to the participants. If the participants say, oh, something I don't want to, I don't want researchers to include this in the publication, we delete the data, right? If it's too sensitive, it's too whatever it is. So we just do this in a more transparent way. We do this in a more transparent manner. So establish rapport with the participants. Even the process does not end after you collect your data. It's not about this half an hour or 1 hour experience. I collect your data, goodbye, I never see you again. No, it's not the case, right? So something that's when you collect the data, I always have this contact, this connection as well. In case in the future, you also want to check, you ask the interviewee, the participants, to explain it, to interpret something you don't understand, but you also share the data with the participants to thank the participants, and also, you know, to check if the participants want to grant you to include every data, or if the participants want to delete if it's something too sensitive or something they don't want to share, even it's anonymous, right? So this is being transparent, this is being reflexive about the subjectivity. Yeah. Two examples that how I respond, and again, just not maybe those papers are published. Yeah, I don't know if I don't know who reviewed the paper. Maybe one of you here, yeah, if you recognize this paper anyway. So receive the comments. Yeah, how you respond. So I always thank you. Yeah. And try to write this in a different, don't just say thank you very much. Sometimes say thanks for the suggestion, sometimes say thanks for the comment. Yeah, exactly. Explain it. Yeah. So here, if the reviewer was not sure about it, the reviewer says, for example, the authors pointed out explicit expressions related to the ideology of native speakerism, but it is not clear what were the explicit expressions and how those expressions were interpreted as evidence of ideology of native speakerism. So we explain it. The paper adopts a qualitative content analysis method, and we have explained that in the study section. So sometimes, yeah, if the reviewer is not sure about this, point it out, and maybe you can highlight on the text, right? And we explain it due to the word limit for this article. We cannot provide more details about method because ELT generally accepts 4,000 word paper. But we use the term, we explain it. Yeah, the reviewer is not able to understand explicit statements to refer to those statements emphasizing the native speakerism ideology directly. We will provide an example there. So here the reviewer would like us to explain the term. So we explain it. Yeah, but of course we follow the suggestion. So we explain here, and we also added the explanation to this section on the paper itself. So here, this is the way we tell the reviewer, right? We explain it here. We also point to the text that we take your point seriously. Yeah, I'm not going to go through everyone. Yeah. Another example here, this is from the system. Yeah. So normally I just put different colors. Yeah, the response I just put in different color, but this one was generated through the system on PDF. So yeah, it's not from the Word document. So here the it's not here. So if I give you an example here, like this one. Yeah, the discussion of the findings needs to be anchored on the theoretical assumptions underlying the use of translanguaging, for example, as a pedagogic strategy, if the study is to add and use some of the reference. Yeah? So we explain it. We say, thank you for the suggestion. We do agree that this is important to compare, contrast the current finding with some previous studies. So we have therefore added a summary. So again, we recognize the point, and then we explained like where we revised, where we added information. So we quote here, the revision. This is the text. This is where we revise based on the comments and based on the references provided by the reviewer. And we're putting out the line number to help the reviewers to locate from the text, right? And this one is another, the issue of stakeholders beyond the teachers and students in this particular university is also not fully discussed. What about the tensions mentioned? Yeah, we'll say thank you. We explain the use of stakeholders. The paper has discussed some tensions, as suggests why we have added the rationale of this research, right? So here, as one of the limitation, we explain it in detail. So where we said, therefore, we call for more research from So this is what we added here. So we have included this as a limitation at the end of this paper. We cannot address, for example, the reviewer mentioned stakeholders beyond the teachers and students. And in this paper, we didn't have parent data, and we didn't have this policymaker data. So we just put this as one of the limitations. Yeah, so it does not mean that we don't respond, right? When we don't have the data, we explain why we could not have this data, we could not provide more data. We explain it as one of the limitations. I think this is the way that we can respond to reviewers in a more strategic manner, right? Again, if you're interested.
Yeah, just a quick question from your experience as the expert on the qualitative research. How do you normally tackle with the reviewers who have different ideas under one particular issues? I mean, they comment differently. So how do you normally tackle with this issue? I'm not sure if you ever come across this experience or not, but I mean, and always come across with this experience. So I'm not sure how do you tackle with these particular issues. Two reviewers, their comments like a different to one another.
I explain it. I would follow if I agree with one or another. That if I disagree with one another, I just explain it as reviewer one says da 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 da. If I follow the reviewer two, yeah. If I follow reviewer one, and if I was refuting reviewer two, as reviewer one obtained this point da 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 da. Yeah, and I don't say I follow reviewer one. I say we revise in this way, which is reviewer one. So I explain to reviewer two, because hopefully the revision will be sent to the same reviewers, and reviewer two will say, oh, reviewer one stands on your perspective, right? Oh, maybe it's understandable. I don't know. So in this sense, we just explain it as reviewer one mentioned. So in this sense, as suggested by reviewer one, I just put it here to reviewer two to read that, yeah, reviewer one will agree with me. How about you? Strategically, yeah. If the reviewer two still would not agree with you, it's very difficult, right? Even he would say, oh, no, I don't agree with you. So here, in that sense, the editor will make a decision, right? You can also contact the editor. They have different points, different opinions. Yeah. But it happens, right? Some references, if you're interested in, yeah. So the first one is very general research methods in education. Yeah, it's on my bookshelf always. I think it's the one that at least postgraduate students should read. Qualitative research methods. Yeah, I think there is a new edition here. Data analysis, handling quality. There are loads of books by Wiley, by Sage. Yeah. So data and methodology, right? Again, this one is questionnaire if you're interested in, and second language research in general. For postgraduate students or for novice researchers, yeah, the series of here is Sage by Sage. Inspirational writing for academic publication, critical reading and writing for postgraduate. And here, writing in applied linguistics thesis or dissertation. Yeah, a guide to presenting empirical research. So those books are more like on writing in general. I think, yeah, that's almost from me. Keep calm and publish and no perish. Publish and flourish. Okay, thank you very much. James, you may need to unmute.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So now question and answer. So if you have any questions, so please feel free to address your question to the speaker, or you can also post your question in the open chat box, and I will collect and read them to the speaker.
Yeah. Any questions or comments? Welcome. Or if you want to share your experience with us.
Yeah, you can share your own experience, doing qualitative research as well.
Okay, maybe I can address some. I mean, one more question actually. From what I have known so far, one of the most challenging experience in conducting qualitative research is that, I mean, in terms of data collection, some people, some people say that, okay, it's maybe difficult if, to find out if the participant telling us the truth. Some people said that, okay, most of the participants, they just want to please the researchers. So this is the way they provide us the answer when we interview them. So how could we make sure that, I mean, the data or the information that the participant offering or giving us during the interview, for example, it is the truth?
Okay, thank you. So
actually this question, came from my PhD defending, which was the first question that the external examiner asked me, because my PhD thesis I was conducted in terms of the perception, looking at the perception belief of the teachers, students, and administrators regarding the construction of the nativeness. And even the external reviewer and the external examiner said, even though you have provided us some kinds of reliabilities or whatever, but when you deal with something in people's mind, which is more complicated, maybe the number maybe it's not enough. So how could you make sure that data is the truth from the participants?
Okay, thank you. I think this is very complicated. Even how do you make sure that what I said in my PhD defense is always true, right? In the sense is that we may need, again, like longitudinal, different routes of data collection, or if we can have this ethnographic techniques with the participants, maybe we don't just arrange 30 minutes, 40 minutes with them to just start with the interview. Maybe before the interview, you can have a quick chat, or maybe you can have a quick drink, and then to arrange a time, you can have a drink together. And then you say, okay, maybe tomorrow, the day after tomorrow, we have an interview. So in this sense, we establish rapport. So the participant know, okay, what kind of person you are, what kind of questions that you expect them to answer. So in that sense, right? And if you want to make sure, we always know, like compared to quantitative, how do you make sure that people respond to questionnaire? The comments always how people just click the answer very quickly in 5 minutes, right? So again, you never know. So this is the way that we can do triangulations, and again, we can collect several rounds of interview. And then even if you say something that tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, maybe after 1 month, you may change your attitude. That's why I also keep contact with the participants. When I finish my transcription, I send my transcription back. And here, if someone changes his or her mind, maybe we keep in talking, and then we just update this transcript. Different rounds of interview maybe, or different ways of triangulation. But it's always the case if we work with human beings. Maybe after 1 month, something will change. You change your mind, not only from this interview, right? It's in your life. Maybe 2 years ago, you like this type of food, you like cheese. Maybe after 2 years, you prefer another type of cheese, another type of food. So it's always the case. So I think we just seize the moment, this period of time, make sure we collect the most authentic data, but we never know. It's not always. So I think we just analyze based on the data we have, and we try our best to collect, I would say the most authentic, maybe by telling that you don't just participate if you want to reach a high score at the end. It's nothing about the score. You participate, good for your own, it's good for me. We just you can learn from how we conduct a piece of research, for example. It's not about the high score. So in that sense, we explain to the students, the people, the participants, that you don't just participate because you want some other motivator incentives, for example, right? So different strategies that I use. I hope that those are something to obtain more objective, more reliable data. I don't know if I answered the question. Maybe if you were the examiner, if you are happy with this.
Yes.
Okay.
Any more question? Okay. So I got list of the question, okay, in the chat box. Okay, so from the attendees. Okay, so this guy asks, okay. He said, I would like to ask you something about theoretical framework. I see in my research articles, there is always theory on something acting as the theoretical framework for data analysis. But when I was reading articles on EFL, for example, students' perception on EFL, there is not always a theoretical framework. And the question is it that EFL itself already a framework?
Okay, thank you.
ELF.
ELF. Yeah,
Yes.
it's more about ELF as the field, right? I would guess that when you read a paper, it's not about theoretical framework for data analysis. It's about the analytical framework for data analysis and theoretical framework in the literature review, right? And the introduction, I think is that what you meant. Whether ELF is already a framework, really, for me, if you ask Professor Jennifer Jenkins, she would say yes, it's already a framework or a paradigm. It's its own. Yeah, but yeah, remember that some reviewers may not be happy with this. Yusuf, if you remember the comments this morning, Global English is whether this is a theoretical framework.
Yeah.
The reviewers mentioned that you need to develop theoretical framework. The Global English is or ELF is not theory, but in applied linguistics, how do we deal with a theory, right? Sometimes a theory is also relevant to classroom practice, classroom discourse, whether translanguaging is a theory. Professor Liwei also mentioned that translanguaging is a practical theory of language, right? So I would say that ELF itself, it's a framework, yeah, but always, if we want to link to multilingualism, native speakerism, language ideology as the theoretical framework, I think I can't say it's safer to pass the reviewers' comments, but some reviewers, yes, they don't like to say ELF as a framework. But for me, it is a paradigm. It is a framework. It's already developed as a framework on its own, but ELF is always linked to native speakerism, language ideology, something, yeah, as more like established framework. And when people talk about attitude as a framework or perception as a framework, as a theoretical framework. So in this sense, yeah, I always connect with something. Don't just write ELF as its own to claim it as a framework. Yeah, some reviewers may not agree with it. Yeah, this is based on my experience.
Do you have any tips to deal with the overwhelming qualitative data?
Okay. So don't just expect that you use all the data in one paper. Yeah, depends on the themes, depends on the codes. That's why sometimes you collect data overwhelming, but when you feel that with those overwhelming qualitative data, you may turn those to 2 or 3 papers, right? Depends on the focus, depends on the themes on your paper. If you just want to write in one paper, you don't use all the data, but just analyze based on the themes, and don't feel sad to just throw away some data that are not helpful just for the focus of this paper, if you want to turn it into one piece of paper. Yeah. So it's always to do the coding. Yeah, to the coding. Focus on the themes. And again, don't just say, I want to focus 5 or 6 themes in one paper. It's always quite impossible. 3 or 4 should be enough, as long as you explain, yeah, clearly to the readers, to the reviewers, right? Yeah.
So the next question: what's your consideration when choosing journals to submit your research article?
Oh, that's really broad. It's very difficult to answer, right? What is your concern? I think a very general tip is that to read the scope of the journal, to read the previous publications of that journal, right? If you pragmatics, for example, you just search some journals on pragmatics, you focus on language education or classroom practice, you may read ELT journal, or some journals published like practical. If it's more theoretical paper, you want to read like system or applied linguistics or TESOL quarterly, right? For example, language, but it's more theoretical and practical, maybe language teaching research. So I think it is a very general tip is that to see the focus, right? Whether it's more theoretical, more practical, and how many words, right? That your paper has. So a very general one is to read the scope and read the previous publications of that journal. It's very difficult to say, yeah. So, and also the journal ranking, if you want to publish maybe SSCI or ISIQ1, so you have that number of journals. If you simply just want to publish ISI, whatever, Q1, Q4, so you have more options, right? So again, really depends on, or you publish Scopus, etc. So the index, the scope, the topic, and of course, some journal prefer quantitative, some journal are more open, some journals are more open to qualitative data. They also know the editor's preference as well.
Okay. So the next question, what is the difference between qualitative content analysis and thematic analysis? And how do we know which analysis method is more suitable for the study?
Content analysis, I think they're very similar. I think it simply depends on who wrote the guidance or the methodological book. They can be used interchangeably. But I think if we want to see the differences, that thematic analysis is one theme can be broader than different contents. But they are the same literally. If we do like NVivo, it's called a node. If it's a node, so you can put a theme, a big theme, and then you can have some smaller content. But if you write a 6,000, 7,000 word paper, you can just call this content analysis, right? Or you can have three, maybe you say 4.1, you can have a theme. 4.1.1, you can have a content, but it's not always necessary. They are very similar, or you can use it interchangeably. If you want to say the difference is that theme can be broader, content can be smaller. This is what I understand, but sometimes I don't just distinguish this within a 6,000-7,000 paper. You can just say you use content analysis, you do semantic analysis. Okay, we know which analysis. I think they can be used in applied linguistics, at least in sociolinguistics. If you don't see the prosodic features, if you don't want to see the theme, okay, what they said, if you don't analyze the discourse level, I think they can be used both. Either way.
And the next question is about sampling for an interview. So how do we determine the appropriate number for the interviews?
Again, is a question that you need to consider the research purposes, right? And how much can be used? The data? How many data can you include in a paper if there's 7,000 words, right? If you interview 15 participants, for example, can you use all the 15 participants' data, right? If you say, I interview 15 people, and then in the data extract, in the different themes, different codes, you simply use 6 people. You simply use examples of 6 participants. So why do you claim you use the 15 participants. So if you interview 15 participants, you include all the 15 people. Even you don't need to have every extract or every quote of the 15 participants, but at least, right, you need to use some examples. Maybe there's some people believe that, at least you have the bracket by saying that the number, the exact participant, which, so make it simple is that when you interview people, make sure you need to indicate, you need to demonstrate all the data, as even if it's a case, even if it's an example. So if it's a case study, right? If it's a case study, 3 or 4 people can be enough, but you need to interpret the data. You need to have different routes. Maybe you do this narrative inquiry, that you go more in depth, right? So how do we determine? Again, depends on the purposes, I would say. Yeah, it's also very difficult. There is no fixed answer on this question. Yeah. Yeah, really depends on the purposes. If you want to see 2 cases, you can have 2 interviewees, but you just do this presentation in different way, right? Maybe you don't do the themes when you present the data. You just do it participants, based on the participants, and within the participant you have the same themes. Another participant, you have different themes. In that sense, you don't. So here it depends on the way you present your data and the purposes of writing, right? But I mean, when you have 10 participants, use all the data of the 10 participants. If you use 15, use all the data. I don't like this idea that if people say, I interview 15 people, you make a table of 15 people, and then in the data analysis, you only have 6 or 7 people's data. So in that sense, right, why do you use the other participant in that way? Yeah. So that's my suggestion.
So are there any more questions?
Yeah, I hope that answered the question. Yeah.
Okay, so it seems there is no more questions. So if there is no more question,
I think someone raised their hands.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Hi, Professor.
Please.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So sorry, I cannot turn on my camera because my connection is quite intermittent. You mentioned just a very fast question. You mentioned a while ago about pseudo journals that promise false academic prestige. My question is that despite the awareness of a lot of researchers, they still find themselves prey with these kinds of journals. Now, I'm just curious, what is your stand? You as a scholar, and maybe I know that you have a lot of scholar friends. Like, what's your opinion about this matter? Because there's no way that we can control them, right? So I just want to know what's your stand, or what's your opinion about this? Like, despite the awareness, they still fall as victims to these predatory journals.
Oh, people still publish in predatory journals, right?
Yes.
What's my opinion?
Yeah. I know that they're aware of it. But they still find themselves, publishing in those kinds of predatory journals. I know that there's no way to stop it, but yeah, I just want to know your opinion as a scholar.
Yeah, it's about money making, right? For people, they don't even have a publisher. They just, I think one thing is about university policy, right? They don't see the index. They just require people to publish whatsoever. So maybe it's one of the motivations that people who needs to just publish within this contract, so they cannot publish in top journals or the quality journals, that they have to pay to publish in predatory journals because they have to pay. Another is that people probably they don't really spend time and effort, because always if we publish in quality journal, we need to go through the procedure and many rounds of revision. But you publish in predatory journals, you spend some money it's out in 2 weeks, right?
Or maybe,
So
maybe 1 week.
Maybe 1 week, right? Because it's not read, it's just, or as long as you pay it, you just publish. So it's a kind of industry, right? It's a kind of industry. And many people, or as authors, they are aware of this, but for students, they are not aware of this, which means they spend their time reading those papers in predatory journals. So, I tell my students that don't read papers on predatory journals, but the first glance, the first stage, you need to know what are the predatory journals. It's not worth reading it, right? My opinion is that I cannot stop it. It's very complicated, right? For people, they have their purposes. Even if you just realize that they are aware of it, maybe they have their own institutional policy they have to meet, they have to publish whatsoever. Or maybe they don't want to spend time. Maybe they just say, I want to secure my job. I publish whatsoever. Yeah, because they publish it. They just need to secure the job. Yeah, because I don't think that, yeah, sorry, yeah.
And the problem also, Professor, I see is that most of the universities, they're really forced, or they're really, I know it's a requirement to publish, like especially if you're a teacher of that university. I know that some universities would require the students to publish articles, and then I think they also get pressured to publish immediately.
Yes, so it's a requirement, especially for PhD students, master students, so they have to publish from students level, from university level. So whatsoever, as long as they have published in the written journals. Yeah, they just, yeah, as part of the job requirements, their job or their requirements to pass their PhD, for example. Yeah, I think there's something. It's always, it has the reason. There is always a reason. There is always the motivation there. Probably it's policy, yeah, different policy, or people want to just, yeah, to publish it because they have the funding and they don't care about their firms or something. Yeah, it's always complicated. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay, and now there are also this kind of predatory conferences as well. Yeah, you just pay the registration fee, and it's just, you present, nobody watches the conference, and just
I've heard of that. I've heard of that too.
Yeah, it's not organized by any organization. It's just by somebody or by any underground association or something. They just get the money. They just receive the money. It's not about academic. It's about money making. So it's very complicated. Yeah, issue.
Okay, so if there's no more question, I think the talk's over now. So on behalf of the organizing team, I would like to thank Dr. Fang, okay, for serving as our speaker. And I think this is what we have learned from you today, okay. In order to get our work published, we need to make our paper original with the right topic and with a high quality manuscript, right? And then we need to write with passion. We need to choose the right journal, and also we need to be patient with the long process of reviewing the paper, right? And also I think your insights on writing a qualitative research paper will help us overcome the challenges we are facing, probably all the challenges that we might have in doing and publishing qualitative research in the future. So thank you very, very much, Mr. Fang.
Thank you. Thank you for chairing the session. Thank you.
Okay, so before you leave the meeting, may I now ask all of you to kindly give us your feedback in order to improve the next coming events by completing an evaluation form available in the link given in the chat box. So your comment is very useful for us to better the next coming events. So the link is now given in the chat box.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
The link of the evaluation already posted on the chat box.
Okay. So once you have completed the evaluation form, you will be directed to the link to the certificate of participation. So just go to the link given Okay, so the link is now given to you in the chat box. Okay. Okay, so please be also informed that the next webinar will be on the 3rd of December at 3:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. Okay, and you will be meeting with Associate Professor Dr. Robert Mackenzie from Northumbria University, UK. He will be talking about research methods in applied sociolinguistics. And during the following week,
This
okay,
one
this is okay,
yeah.
sorry, I got the wrong. Okay, so this is the next coming event, okay, on the 3rd of December.
This one is on the 10th, right? This one is on the 10th of December.
This one is on the 3rd, right?
No, the 10th. The one that you share on the screen say 10 December.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let me share. So this one is on the 3rd. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And on the following week, you will be meeting with him again. Okay, so on the 10th of December, Robert Mackenzie again will be talking about social and regional variation in spoken English. So the registration is now open, right? You can register now.
Yeah, I sent on the chat box already.
Okay. So I think you are now working with the evaluation form and also trying to collect the the
Gabriel,
certificate of participation. Yeah.
Gabriel, some of the participants would like to ask for your PowerPoint slide. I'm not sure if it's okay or not.
I will convert to PDF and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, or maybe you can share here on the chat box.
Okay. Wait a minute, so I'm converting this to PDF.
Yes, sure. I'm not sure if it's too big or not, to post it here. Because last time I'm not able to post it because it's too big. So maybe you have to make it like a Google Drive link, and then you can send us the link here. In that case, it should be okay.
It should be fine. Let me check. I don't think it's too big.
Okay, you can try that.
Yes, I'm sending it. Yeah, I think it's successful. It's on the
Yeah.
on the chat box, right? Yeah, but just to keep it by yourself. Yeah, if you for the participant, if you just keep it by yourself as a reference.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. So I think we can end the session now. So as a moderator, I would like to express my sincere thanks to our speaker and to all of you for attending this talk. Okay, and also my special thanks to the project supervisor and the team for participating and supporting us to make this talk a success. So have a good day and see you on the 3rd of December.
Okay, so thank you everyone. Thank you everyone again for your active participation, and hope to see you in the next events next month on the 3rd and the 10th of December. And we're going to meet up with our Professor Robert Mackenzie. So everyone, please have a nice day and thank you very much. And thank you again, Fang and James, for your supporting us today. Okay, and hope to see you.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Thank you.
everyone, have a nice day.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Fang.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye, thank
Bye.
you. Hope we can invite you in person, Fang, one day to be here.
Oh, yeah. Okay.